Hello everyone and welcome to Property Perspective. Today we have the privilege of having our two guests again, Mathieu Arsenault, who will be talking to us about the macroeconomic environment. Hello Mathieu.
Hello Nancy.
And we also have André Desrosiers. Hello André.
Hello Nancy.
And today André will tell us what are the costs that are surrounding the transaction of actually buying a house. So hang in there, you're going to see that the list is quite long. So before we start with you, André, Mathieu, since we last spoke, we've had 2 rates increase, so 50 beeps. And are you surprised? Because we thought then that it would not happen, or at least we hoped that it would not.
Yeah.
And it did. And what do you think prompted such a decision?
I was not that much surprised. There was some signs of discomfort from the Bank of Canada with there was a disappointment back in April for inflation, and that led to the start again other rate hikes starting in June and another one in July. As you can see on that chart, another 50 beeps as you mentioned. As a result, we have the highest policy rate since 2001, which is a very restrictive monetary policy. So not surprised, but I do not agree that much with the decision. Even according to the Bank of Canada, Nancy, the transmission of monetary policy, it takes between 18 to 24 months to have the full impact on the economy. So that means that the first hike we got back in March 2022, we don't have the full effect yet. So for that reason, I think it was a bit premature. It was a bit perilous, risk of recession are there. So I will have wait a bit to see the impact of those rate hikes that have been done previously before rising again. And I'll say that development since then, economic indicators did not change my point of view on that. There has been improvement on the inflation front over the past 2 months. And as you can see on that chart, headline CPI, so total inflation, is now back in the target range desired by the Bank of Canada. And if you exclude mortgage interest cost, why excluding it? It's because the Bank of Canada is responsible of this surge that we are currently experiencing. So if you exclude that, in fact, we are right on the 2% target that the Bank of Canada want to see. There's the Bank of Canada is looking at less volatile components, what we call underlying inflation, which exclude the most volatile component each month. They are still rising a bit too high at this point because mostly of wages, a tight labor market. But even on that front, you can see on that chart that there has been improvement with a rise of the unemployment rate over the past 2 months. So a 0.4 increase at this point. We don't see that often historically to see the Bank of Canada still rising rates while the unemployment rate is on an upward trend. That's what we are currently experiencing. And as you can see on that chart, even wages are moderating, which is also a good news for inflation down the road. And what I showed you is a very tight monetary policy with its full other impact coming in the next few months. So slowdown is coming, probably hiring freeze, which will lead to an increase, a further increase in the unemployment rate. In such a context, yes, maybe it was a bit premature, and Bank of Canada could be surprised on the downside. They are relatively optimistic for growth. We are more prudent in our current forecast.
And here we're here to talk about obviously the property perspective, so the real estate market. And what do you think are the implications for our clients that are looking at buying a new house or buying their first house? And what do you expect for the rest of the year?
As you can see on this chart, Nancy, there has been a surprising rebound in the housing market, with rates increasing, affordability being a challenge for new home buyers. Despite that, rebound in home sales, as you can see on that chart, the blue line. Home prices are going up, rebounding from there has been at this point between 8 to 9% decline until the trough, and now it's rebounding. So of course, in the current context, what is the explanation of this rebound is demography. We got 1.2 million increase in population in Canada. It's just terrific in terms of the magnitude of this size. It represents two Newfoundland in joining the federation in 1 year. That's huge increase on a historical basis. Usually, it takes some time for immigrants to become homeowner we'll say on average 3 years. But given the magnitude of this 1.2 million, there has been a couple of them that became homeowner and supported the market despite high interest rate. So the confirmation of that is what we see is when you look at the largest urban market on that chart is city that experience the largest increase in population are experiencing the higher level of activity in the resale market at this point, with Alberta more than 4% growth and resale activity above historical norm in the current context. So clearly population growth, as you see on that chart, is driving the resale market at this point. And will continue to do so. There's a divergence at this point. So strong increase in population during the last quarter, and housing starts declining. So the incentive to build for home builder is not there that much, with still very high construction costs and high capital costs. Interest rates are high, so profitability is not there for some projects. So we are in a situation where there's going to be a scarcity of dwellings in the coming months. So yes, rates have increased. Policy rate, 5-year rates, which are headwinds for the housing market. Labor market will deteriorate a bit, but on the flip side, there's very strong demography. So we expect some weakness, but there's a support for not seeing a crisis at this point in Canada in the housing market.
Yeah, very well explained. Your graphs are amazing. They are so clear. So thank you very much. It's still going to be a very interesting follow-up on the next couple of months to see how those strengths, but there are pull and push happening at the same time in the housing market. So thank you, Mathieu. And André, so you have quite a list of costs. So obviously we know, and we talked about it the last time, when we buy a house, we'll think about, my monthly payment. And we had talked about variable rates compared to fixed rates. So I want to know how much I'm going to pay for my mortgage fee, right? My mortgage on a monthly basis, for example. But there's so many more costs that we need to think of. So can you give us the list that you've made up so far, and what does it represent? Because I think it's quite substantial.
Exactly, Nancy. Acquiring a property involves many costs, of which either we're not aware of or that we don't think about when we buy the house because we're too excited about. Exactly. So you have the down payment that you have to make for your house, but above that you have to estimate approximately 2 to 3% of the value of the property that you're buying as other costs. And we're going to look at these costs one by one. And as you said, there are quite a lot of them.
Yes, definitely.
Okay? First, if we look at the appraisal fees, okay, so expect for that appraisal to cost you around, $350. It's usually used by the loaner also to provide you your mortgage loan, and it gives and defines the market value of the property. So it reassures you that the price you're paying for your house is the right price. So that's what the appraisal will do for you. The second fees that you have to look for is the inspection fees. You could this fee starts at around $500, and we encourage you to use someone that is recognized by an association or an order in order to provide you with insurance if you ever have something, you know, that wasn't disclosed to you when you bought the house, and that and that you're confronted with when you go into your house. So we encourage you also to put that in your purchase offer as a condition.
Yes.
Okay, so that you will buy the house until you have a proper inspection telling you that, you know, everything is okay. Also, this will tell you what you will have to invest in that house in the years to come. Okay, so that's interesting to know. So you can budget, you know, some of major, smaller or higher renovation that you will have to do, and you will be able to budget around that for the years to come.
Definitely.
So, yeah. Naturally, you have the legal fees, and that's, you know, around, you know, between $1,500 and $3,000. It's the notary or the lawyer fee, depending if you are in Quebec or in other provinces. And these experts take care of the deed of sale, for example. They will make sure also that your title search is okay, and they will register your property at the municipality and government registration. So it is mandatory in Quebec to go to a notary. In other provinces, we highly encourage that you go to a lawyer, because it's usually lawyers that are specialized in property acquiring that will help you with that. You also have what we call the mortgage loan insurance premium. That, you know, can be, that premium could be up to 4% of the amount of the mortgage loan that you're going to have.
Significant.
And significant, yeah. And it depends on the percentage that you put as a down payment. So if you put less than 20% of the value of the property, you have no choice. You know, it's a regulatory requirement. So you have to have that premium, and that premium will be up to 4%. And in some provinces, Quebec, Ontario, and Saskatchewan, you will have to pay as well provincial sales taxes on this premium. And this premium, the premium itself, you can add up to your loan, to your mortgage loan. However, the tax on that premium you will have to pay when you finalize the transaction with the lawyer or the notary. If you buy a new house, you will also have to pay taxes on them, okay? So federal taxes for sure, and in other provinces, except Alberta, in fact. Alberta is the only one that is charging only the federal tax. You will have to pay the provincial tax. So it may be, you know, between...
And that too you have to pay when you go to the notary or to the lawyer, right? It's not something that you can put on your mortgage.
Exactly. And it can go up to 15% if you're, you know, in some provinces. However, I encourage you to go on the federal government website, because you can have a refund.
In some provinces.
Exactly, and you know, some it's the entire tax, some it's a part of it, but go and look what you can have, you know, depending on where you're buying your property. The other one that everybody loves, the welcome tax or the land transfer tax. So that cost, you know, is usually progressive, and it's on the amount you pay for your house or the evaluation that the municipality has made of your house. And it's the higher one. always, okay? And this, you know, is progressive, as I told you. So depending on the amount, the percentage that you pay go less as you go higher, but, you know, the spread is the same for the scale that you have. And make sure that you plan for it. And even if you haven't received it 6 months after you moved, I've seen cases where they sent it, you know, a year after, but they won't forget
it's
you.
A couple of months after the transaction.
Exactly, but they won't forget you for sure. You're gonna you're gonna receive it. The last cost that we have are the moving and one that we always forget, the decorating costs that I call. So moving, naturally, if you take a company, movers will charge between 50 and 250 an hour. It will depend greatly on where you move, on what season you are. If you move, for example, in Quebec, if you move on July 1st, you're going to be on the higher end of the scale. If you move the 1st of January, it will be good fight to find someone, but it's going to be a lot cheaper. Exactly. You can also decide to do it yourself. So calculate around $300, to rent a truck. And don't forget the pizza and beer for everyone that will come and help you. So that's important. And the decorating cost, like I told you, is something that almost everyone forgets. So, there may be an orange wall in one piece that we will want to change. Exactly. Lightning, store, the blindings, the blindings, furniture as well, you may need some so you have to think about that as well. So,
and I would add, because you were talking about a new house before, if you buy a new house, then you have to do, make sure that you plan the landing and the fences and maybe a tree, and it can add up very, very quickly.
Yeah, and there are many cities now that are giving you, a year to do these things. You cannot do them only when you want to do them.
Yeah, you have a limit.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's quite a list. It's surprising that it's only 2-3%. So we really need to do the math, because there's a lot of things to think of. But also, and it's more for the first-time home buyer because others have gone through it. But if it's the first time that you buy a house, there are monthly payments that you have to do. So a couple of ideas for us?
Yeah, you've got annual payments that are coming, every year and that you have to plan for. You have, for example, the municipal and school taxes, which in some cities are quite high. You have, if you buy a condo, you probably have the co-owner tax. That's also that can be fee. Exactly. You have an home insurance, and many lender will ask you, will tell you it's required.
Yeah.
Okay. And don't forget, monthly that you have to pay your internet, your cable, your heating, your electricity, your gas. So you have to look at your budget and make a new budget when you buy a house to make sure that you can provide for all these fees and costs that you will have.
And one thing, André, also, as a financial planner, we always say that we need to have an emergency fund. And very often we've seen that people will use that emergency fund to increase their down payment so that they don't pay the premium for insurance as much. But then there will be things that will happen. So you really need to make sure that either you don't touch it, that would be the best world. If not, you need to rebuild it very quickly, because emergency will happen while being an owner of a house. So that's something not to forget either.
Yeah, you're very right on that. Sure.
Thank you, André. So as you can see, very important to do the budget, to plan accordingly. And I thank you for your presence today. I hope you've learned a lot. Mathieu, thank you for your clear presentation. André, thank you for that list. It was very educating, I hope. And we'll see you soon. Thank you very much.